Greetings, Master Nigel here again, and in this video I will be representing the new client who has just taken the plunge and invested significant time and money in practice, engaging with the Mastery Performance Activation System. So the actual setup and startup involves two parts, and I'm going to split it up into two parts, and each part has a number of steps. So let's talk about the first part. The first part has 6 steps, and the first step in the first part is to make sure that I paid my deposit. The deposit I paid represents my commitment to getting started. It allows my facilitator to start putting things into motion, setting up the schedule, preparing for me so that I can be served properly, and the money shows that I'm serious and I'm willing and I'm invested, I'm in. The second step in the first part is to make sure that I'm clear as the new client that which program I chose. Master Nigel offers lots of programs, and the Master Performance system has many combinations of practice sessions. So it is up to me to get clear on which one I've chosen, and I can go there by clicking on the link that's provided to look at my option that I've discussed with my facilitator and go through the curriculum to say, oh yeah, this is the one I want. Oh yeah, this is the practices I intend to get, and these are the values that I intend to extract from my program. So now that I'm clear about the second step, which is to clarify the program and the curriculum that goes with it, the next thing is to fill out my session preparation form. So step 3 is to fill out my session agreement. And in the session agreement, what it is really doing is 2 things. The first thing it's doing is making sure that I document which program I am purchasing and the commitments that go with it, such as the timing and the money, and also when my intend to finish my payments. I could pay in full, or I can set up a multi-payment arrangement. Either way is documented in the session agreement, and I get to fill it in, and I communicate that to my facilitator when I send that person the session agreement. The other thing that the session agreement is doing for me, it is laying out all the things that I'm required to do to be successful and to honor the practices that are embodied in the Mastery Performance Activation System. So I'm being invited to read the whole session agreement from the beginning to the end, and making sure that I really fully embrace the principles, the requirements, the restraints, the invitations that are embedded in the session agreement. And then at the end of reading it and filling out all the necessary components, I'm required to sign it, take a picture of it, and take a picture of each page actually, and send a copy to my facilitator, and at the same time schedule a time, preferably before my first or second session, to go over the session agreement with my facilitator. Now, when I'm with my facilitator, what I'm really doing, my intention is to demonstrate to the facilitator that I am very clear about the content of the session agreement. I'm very clear about what I have signed up for, and I am very clear that I'm willing to honor all the agreements within the session agreement. And I'm going to be teaching that back to my facilitator until my facilitator gets that I get it, if that makes any sense. My facilitator is convinced that I'm fully conversant with the content of my session agreement, and they are comfortable in proceeding knowing that I will be honoring the agreement that I just signed. Now, so I've handled my deposit, I've got clear on my program choices and the curriculum that goes with it, and I have signed my session agreement. The next thing, now that I'm on board, and each time I do one of these steps, I'm firmly committing myself to the program, is to make sure that I have access to my Mastery Performance Activation Toolbox. And I will have access to that because my facilitator would have sent me an email pointing to where it's located. And typically, at least at the time of creating this video, my session toolbox is part of a Google document, and it really comprises of spreadsheets and documents and presentations that I can share interactively with my facilitator. So the main one is the spreadsheet, which has multiple tabs on it, and it has places for me to enter my information into it, and that way I can use it to track my performance, and my facilitator can see me tracking my performance. And I'm now embracing one of the principles of the Mastery Performance practices, which is whatever I can measure, I can move. And in part 2, I will be talking about how I will be starting to put some of my measurements into these toolboxes. So, recapping again, starting up, pay my deposit, clarify my program and the curriculum that goes with it, read and fill out and send off the session agreement, get access to my toolbox. The next thing that is important for me to do is to make sure that I've set up my final payment arrangement, because sometimes I may have only put down a small deposit with the intention of paying the balance later, either as a single payment or in multiple payments. Either way, I should have documented those payments in my session agreement, but Master Nigel has provided some mechanisms where I can actually pre-program myself to have that payment automatically set up for me, so that the facilitator can focus on the session rather than chasing me down to collect payments. I think that makes sense. It makes sense to me, and I'm sure it makes sense to my fellow masters too. So once the payments have been set up, what else is there? So I've set up my agreements, my payments. Oh, the scheduling. The final thing is to make sure that I have set up I schedule the time, my weekly session time with my facilitator. And typically my facilitator might send me a link to their calendar to say, Nigel, please choose the time when you wish to have your sessions each week based on what's available on this link here. And so basically it's up to me to choose the time that works best for me. And if I have an issue with using these links, I can simply pick up the phone and call my facilitator and say, listen, Mr. Facilitator, can I work it out with you as we're on the phone together, and pick a time that mutually works for each other. So now that money is handled, system is handled, schedule is handled, the first part of the setup is complete. All right. Now, part 2. I'm ready to get working. It's in the second part of this startup procedure. The intention of the second half is for me to do what is called a session preparation. Why is this important? Now, typically in the session, Master Nigel likes to have the facilitators go really fast, bam, 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 bam. And to the degree that I am prepared and I've done my preparation, then the session goes really, really, really fast. Now, to the degree that I have done no preparation, I just show up, like a student ready to learn from my facilitator, then the session goes really slow, because I'm invited to remember that I am the teacher in the session, and my facilitator is here to bring out my capacity to teach and to deliver wisdom. Now, like all good teachers, facilitators, leaders, I do my best work when I prepare in advance. So there's a thing called a session prep, which allows me, it's a structured set of things that I am required to do to prepare in advance for my session so that when I show up, I can demonstrate to my facilitator, ready to go, have my stuff together, let's go, let's do this. Okay, so what's step number one? Since I'm at the first stage of my program I've just started, so the first thing is really about becoming familiar. And in step one, my first thing is I have no clue. So I'm going to look it up and come back. Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm back. I figured out what it is. So basically, there's just two parts to part two. The first part is about entering in my data into the Mastery Performance Toolbox. And the second part is about becoming familiar with some of the core tools and practices that I'm going to be using throughout the remainder of my sessions. So this is the startup procedure. Therefore, whatever I invest in my startup, I will receive dividends later on. So the first thing that's required is that I am required to open my Mastery Performance Toolbox, is the spreadsheet with the tabs on it, and start filling out all my concerns. Now, why am I required to fill out concerns? Well, mainly because usually I've been carrying concerns around, worries and fears and things. I wonder if it's going to work. I'm not sure. Lots of self-doubt and just worries. They've been with me forever prior to coming into session. And the toolbox, the section mark concerns, allows me to dump them out. And Master Nigel wants me to number each one. And he recommends that I dump out at least 21 concerns. So look in all the aspects of my life, such as my finances. What am I worried about? I will not be able to pay the rent. I might not be able to pay for this course. All these kind of financial concerns need to come out of my head and on into the toolbox, where they will be processed later. I could look at my health. I'm worried about my back. I'm not sure if I don't feel good. I'm not. Usually my concerns are related to what I am concerned is not going to happen, or something that I want that I think is not going to happen, or just something detrimental in the back of my mind that's just running around there. The intention is to get it out of me and onto paper. Looking health, in my relationships, my finances, my lifestyle, what else is there? Health, relationship, finance, and my business. I'm concerned that I'm not going to get that customer. I might not get that contract. Whatever is going on that is concerning me, or fear, bringing up the fear word, then I'm required to dump it out. So by the time of my first session, there should be no worries in my head that is not already on the paper or in the system. So that's the first thing. Get out all concerns. And sometimes the concern can be in the future or in the past. Either way, I'm required to get it out of my system, out of my body, out of my head, and onto the paper. The next thing, after I put out all my concerns, I'm required to make a list of all the things that I'm avoiding, or the action item I'm avoiding. Now, I am terrible. I avoid paperwork. I avoid filling out forms. This particular thing of filling out my session preparation form, oh God, I gotta do it. Either way, whether I've done it or I'm avoiding doing it or don't want to do it, it gets on the avoidance list, which is another tab in my toolbox, in the spreadsheet in my toolbox. So what am I avoiding? Looking at all aspects of my life. Finances, am I avoiding paying the taxes, paying the phone bill? What am I avoiding? And then in my health, am I avoiding going to the dentist, getting a checkup, looking at that pain that's in my feet, and just things that I know I should be attending, but I'll get around to it. I find other things to do. my work? Am I avoiding fixing the computer or taking the car to the shop, checking the oil, looking at that light that's blinking in the car? Either way, whatever I know I should do, and I will get around to it, but I haven't got around to it yet, again, get it down in the avoidance section. And the more, here's the rule that I learned from Master Nigel. He's such a smart dude. He's awesome, I'm telling you. Anyway, what I learned is that the more that I can get out onto that paper, the better my session's going to go on the first session and subsequent sessions. And apparently there's a distinction, which I'm going to learn later, now that I'm a starter, that whatever I'm avoiding, these actions that I'm avoiding are the access to my next level of greatness. So the more avoidance I have in my toolbox is the greater my future is going to be. So I've dumped out my concerns, I've dumped out my avoidances. The next thing he wants me to work on immediately is my cash flow. Apparently, the money, the inflows and the outflows of my money is basically telling me what's going on in my life in all dimensions. And there's another distinction that I'm learning, that I will be learning, and it's called the law of measurements. Whatever I can measure, I can move or change. So if I can measure or see my cash flow, like income and expenses, then I am in a much better position to move it. Isn't that wonderful? Yes, so basically that's one of the things. Now, I personally avoid playing with money, or just where that came from, I have no idea. However, I notice it's one of the things I avoid. So of course I've got to write it down. I'm avoiding looking at my cash flow, and then I've got to actually look at my cash flow by entering all the expenses for the whole year. Even though it's the middle of the year, I've got to go back to the beginning of the year and fill in all of those, and to the end of the year, and where I am invited to fill in the section that says expected income and expected expenses. And if it's let's just say it's May right now, and therefore I know that I know both the expected and the actual income and expenses that happened in January, February, March, April. Now after May, June, July, the only things that I can talk about are the expected. But everything that I know about in the past, I do know the expected and the actual. So I'm invited to fill those in now in my preparation section, because that piece of data is going to help me in my session, my actual session. Now, the general rule about session preparation is the more that I prepare before the session is the faster the session goes, and the more value that I get out of the session, because I get to give more in the session. And if I'm in a group session, then I end up being the best contributor. And in the Mastery Performance Activation system, it's about my capacity to contribute, to give. That's what's being measured, not my capacity to get or to understand. So therefore, to be a great giver, I got to do my prep work ahead of time so that I show up looking like I know what's happening. You know what I'm saying? I know what's going on. Anyway, so the first part of the prep is to get my concerns out and my avoidances out and start getting my cash flow information into the toolbox so that my facilitator can have some data to work with. Now, once I've got those core pieces of information, there's lots of other data that's going to come out later, but usually these are the ones that make the biggest difference at the beginning for me and for my facilitator. The next thing after doing that is to become familiar with some of the core tools in the system. And the first one to become familiar with is the scale of mastery. And I believe there's a button on this webpage that shows where I can click on that, but usually it's something like masternigel.com/scale. And when I click on that, I can see that there's this scale that goes from 7 down to 1, and it's used to measure everything, the mastery level of everything. So to the degree that I am familiar with the scale of mastery, then I will be able to measure my mastery level in all dimensions of my life. The next tool to become familiar with is the virus detector. Actually, no, it's not the virus detector. It's the core values. Now, as I will discover, core values determine everything, or actually restrict or helps me to make decisions that guide me through life. And so to the degree that I'm familiar with the top 6 core values in the Mastery Performance Activation System, then I will be well set up to be in alignment with to get and deliver the best value from my experience. So I believe there's a button somewhere in this video or on this webpage that shows me where the core values are, and my job is to go there, review them, and embody them so that when I'm in the session, my facilitator feels like we're in alignment because we're aligned on our core values. So yes, then after that, after studying the scale of mastery, the core values, then it's time to look at the next most important tool, which is the virus-infected words. Apparently, that tool there is the thing that controls or determines the quality of my speech. And no doubt I'm still speaking a lot of virus words right now, even though I've been in the practice for a while. I've been with Master Nigel for a bit now, and I'm still talking virus, but I have been practicing my virus awareness. And so this tool is called the Virus Awareness Tool, practice tool, and it's basically a sheet of words that have virus words, they're virus infected, which means that when I speak them, my mind starts to slow down and I become blind and get amnesia. So to the extent that I'm aware of these virus words, then I will be choosing my speech very carefully. And when I choose my speech very carefully, my mind runs at optimal and the power of my words increase. Therefore, Master Nigel requires that I actually print this sheet out. In fact, I'm required to print out 1 sheet per day. So it's best for me to print 30 copies because I'll be using them to practice my awareness every day. And he's going to want me to take a picture of the sheet and email or text it to him so that he can see my level of practice. And if it's not Master Nigel that I'm sending it to, I'm going to be sending it to my facilitator or the other people in the group session that I'm with. And it's going to keep me alert and monitoring my tongue and measuring how much virus I'm speaking. And once again, the rule, whatever I can measure, I can move. So if I notice there's a lot of virus going on in my tongue, then I can bring it down. And when I bring it down, then my speed and processing and power and efficiency goes up. So I think that's it. So the first part of the first step of the second part of the preparation is to enter my data into the toolbox, which is mainly my concern, my avoidances, and my cash flow information. And there's a fourth thing I forgot to mention, which is to start writing out the vision, my vision of success. What is my vision for my business that I intend to accomplish while I'm with Master Nigel or practicing on this system here? What is my vision for my health, my relationships, my lifestyle, and any other dimensions of my life that I intend to shift? I'm required to start writing it. Now, I know this is my first session, or I'm getting ready for my first session. Therefore, whatever I produce in this first preparation is going to be a draft. And Master Nigel recommended that I just do a first draft and just treat myself like I'm an iPhone I'm going to be upgraded later on, okay? So don't, it's not be, it's okay for my first draft to be called version 1 because there's going to be a version 2 and there's going to be constant upgrade happening. So, but the main thing is to get started, and the purpose of the preparation is for me to get started so that I can be a great contributor in my first and second and subsequent sessions that I've already paid for, and therefore I can experience maximum value in my session. So, that was a lot. Hopefully I'm thinking that Master Nigel has written out all of these things that I've just shared, and they're probably below this video. And so to the extent that I have made a mistake, then my fellow master, you can just read it for yourself. And he's probably going to be upgrading it anyway later as the system evolves. The steps are probably going to be simplified. So this video is it's just me sharing my experience and helping my fellow masters to get started quickly. So until the next video, this is Master Nigel signing out. Greetings, Master Nigel Henry here. I'm the founder of Mastery Unleashed and the creator of the Mastery Performance Activation System, and I approve of this message.